Alright, today is August 12th, 2019. My name is Jason Higgins. I'm a PhD candidate in American History at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. Today I'm in the Bronx in New York City with Hector Barajas Varela. Can you pronounce your name for me, sir?
Hector Barajas Varela.
Thank you. This interview is part of the Incarcerated Veterans Oral History Project. Hector, if I may, thank you for joining me today and for your willingness to share your story.
Sure. Thank you.
So before we get started, a few brief background information questions. When and where were you born?
So I was born March 6, 1977, and I was born in Mexico, in a state of Zacatecas in Fresnillo, and it's mainly a farming community.
Okay. And what branch of the military did you serve?
I served with the U.S. Army from 1995 through 2001, 5 years and 10 months.
Did you serve in a combat zone?
No, I served during wartime, but no combat.
And what was your highest rank?
My highest rank was E4 Specialist.
Any medals that you care to mention?
I mean, just peacetime medals. I think the most important thing for me is the Parachutist badges. I was an Airborne guy.
Those are your Airborne? Yeah. What was the status of your discharge?
Honorable discharge. I was chaptered out of the military.
What do you mean by chaptered out?
Usually when you get out of the military, either you retire, or sometimes it's medical, or you finish your term. But I was chaptered out because I had, and we'll get into it once we talk, I had an incident with a DUI, and I was in a program for rehabilitation for drugs and alcohol. So, but we could talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about this. Were you influenced to discharge out, so to chapter out?
Well, I was forced. Forced out. Yeah, but with honorable discharge.
Okay.
No.
Great, thank you. Have you ever been diagnosed with PTSD?
No.
And do you have access to counseling services if you needed it?
Yes, at the moment I do.
Okay, great. Have you ever been incarcerated?
Yes, various times.
Do you mind mentioning what charges?
Sure. It was DUIs, the incident that got my deportation for the shooting, and then in the feds like 3 or 4 times for the deportation.
Okay. So let's just take a step back. Can you tell me about your parents? What did they do for a living?
My parents originally they came from the farming community. They and they immigrated to the United States. They worked pretty much in companies all their life, as far as like 9-to-5 jobs. Nothing like where they had a degree or anything like that. It was just like a regular job. Very hardworking people, and my parents pretty much provided everything for me, as far as we never, I was never hungry or anything like that.
Sure.
They're really good.
Do you have any siblings?
I have 2 sisters and a brother and a sister that passed away before. Well, when I was younger. Yeah.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up. I lived in Mexico from when I was born, 77 to 85, 87, and that's when I came to the United States. Then I was in Gardena for a couple of years, California, and then I grew up in Compton, California.
You grew up in Compton?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So your teenage years would have been spent in Compton?
Yeah, most of my teen years. Well, actually, teenage and middle school, and also some of my elementary. So it was pretty much most of my young adult life. Yeah.
Tough neighborhood? Oh
yeah, it was rough. We were the first Hispanics in an African American neighborhood. So from when I was doing an interview with with a psychologist once, she told me, you got PTSD just from what you experienced, because it was very. They pretty much didn't like Hispanics in the neighborhood, so it was rough.
Pretty violent? Yeah,
it was pretty violent. A lot of violence, a lot of gang violence. It was just a lot of racial stuff against Hispanics, and then now it's vice versa. It's pretty. It was a pretty a rough neighborhood. Yeah.
Were you involved in a gang?
Yes, at one point I was forced to join a gang. Yeah.
How old were you?
when I got jumped in, I forget. It was I know it was I was in high school already, so I don't remember. Maybe 16, 17, something like that.
Yeah, whenever you say you were forced in.
Yeah, I didn't even want to be part of the neighborhood. I always hung out with these guys, but they said, well, since you're always getting jumped and something's always happened to you because you hang out with us, you're gonna be from the neighborhood anyway. So they jumped me in, and you had no choice. Like, you're part of the neighborhood, so yeah. So
that was like the initiation ritual.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't have to, but I just went along with it. You're like, oh yeah, whatever.
Sure. So. Did you find some protection?
Yeah, I mean, with this again. When I went to Compton High, and whoever went to Compton High in the '90s, like, like there was like a riot, like a racial riot every week. There was always some kind of fight or something. So I mean, if you had like somebody to back you up, it just made it easier where there was some kind of protection, Yeah. But it still didn't matter because there's always something cracking. But if you were by yourself, you were more of a target,
Do you remember the Rodney King beating and the riots?
Yeah, I remember the riots. Yeah.
What was that like? Living through
that? When that happened, to be honest with you, most of the people that I know that were looting were just looting to loot. I don't think there may have been a few people that were like, oh, angry, maybe all the frustration kind of just everybody, fuck it, just do it. But I remember people were just looting just to loot. I mean, I don't remember too many people looting because they were angry at, at the police. I think there was like a large thousand. I mean, there were literally thousands of people, and some people just saw the opportunity to just, we're gonna get some free shit, So, but yeah, I remember, I went up on the top of my house, my parents' house, and we were able to see all the fires around. In Compton, actually, there was a lot of places that were being looted and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Dangerous times.
Yeah.
Can you tell? Do you remember crossing? Did your parents bring you over illegally?
Yeah, so I did come over illegally, but I don't remember much. So I suffered a traumatic brain injury, which the VA says it's a mild brain injury from a jump injury, and so I can't remember things in like details.
Yeah.
But I just remember that we came in a vehicle, and it was me, my sister, and two cousins, I believe. And that's just all I remember. I remember, like, we were in a vehicle and we came across, and that was it.
So, do you know if your father had already come to the United States and was built?
They were already here. Exactly. My mom, my dad, and my little sister were already in Gardena, California.
Okay.
They're already working and had a little apartment and everything.
Okay. Were you exposed to English before that? Were you learning English?
Never was exposed to English. In fact, I don't recall even struggling to learn English. I just, because I don't remember too much about my when I was younger. But I mean, I don't remember like struggling to learn. I just one of those things where, it was just weird. I don't remember struggling. Yeah, assimilated pretty quick. When you're younger, I guess you're able to take things in more quickly and learn more quickly.
So, for a lot of people who don't understand why parents might risk their lives to come to the United States, like, what were your parents' goals for you?
I think the goals really for my parents were just to make a better living, and an opportunity to have something better than what they had. Really, if you're from the town where we're from, if you don't own land or anything like that, I mean, it's, you're not necessarily going to be a rich person, and over there the crops, they depended on the rain more or less, so it was seasonal. Yeah. So it wasn't like it was yearly where they were able to continue to raise and do crops and stuff. So it was kind of, that makes it more difficult. So they just wanted a different environment and better opportunities, and I think that was the main reason.
I imagine a lot of poverty with migrant work and farming communities.
Yeah, when we came over this way, we lived we're pretty, we weren't rich or nothing like that. And I remember my dad would, besides the work that he had to do, he would also go out and look for like cardboard and cans. I remember being embarrassed. Like, my dad would stop in the middle of the road to pick up some cans, and I'm like, I don't care nowadays. I'll stop you and pick up some cans. But as a kid, you're like, oh man, yeah, my parent, that's where we come from. A very, yeah, I would say poor community. Yeah. Yeah.
So did you like school?
Yeah, I loved school. Actually, I think I loved school up until till I got to probably middle school and that's when I think more kids start. Usually, when you're in elementary, you're not really worried about all the what you wear, or I think when you get into your teenage years and when you start worrying about what you wear, or maybe who you hang out with, and you start noticing the girls, or so a lot of things start changing when you turn into a young adult, and that's when there was guys that I grew up with in elementary, and as soon as we hit middle school, like because then clearly the racial lines were divided, like oh, these guys hang out with this neighborhood, and these guys are it was like a real middle school was like that's when like everything just was divided as far as like who you hung out with and stuff like that. And then middle school was just like definitely like you don't hang out with these people, and it got really violent. Okay, that's when so. But middle school is when it started.
Do you have any mentors or positive influences in your life?
Just probably my parents. I mean, just it's the only people. I mean, there was good teachers that that I had, yeah, I think that's about it. Good teachers and my parents.
Did you plan to go to college?
I didn't plan to go to college until I hit high school, and then it came up really when with the military when I signed up for the military, like they promised a GI Bill, but it wasn't like I had like a set goal of I want to be a scientist or get a degree in this and that. In fact, I'm barely gonna start going to school next year, so yeah, and so not really. It wasn't clearly defined about what I wanted to do. I just wanted to get away from where I was living.
Sure. Did you have any family members who served in the military, either in the Mexican military or in the...
No, I just learned recently that my grandfather served during the Revolutionary War.
Oh, wow.
But other than that, as far as the United States military, I was the first one that joined out of from my mother's side and my father's side, but now I have a bunch of cousins and nephews that are serving, and I have other like far away family that has served, but I was the first one out of all my family.
What factors led to that decision to go into the military?
Really, it sounds corny, but like I remember watching the GI Joes, and oh, I want to be I want to be a soldier.
Sure.
But as a young kid, you see those kind of things, and but yeah, that was part of it, and then it was I wanted to leave the environment that I was growing up in. I wanted a opportunity to do something better. So there was all these different things that just kind of like, and I didn't see myself doing anything else in Compton. Like, what was I going to do? Keep working at Taco Bell or working at the factory? Because I started working young. So I'm like, man, I got to do something else. This is not, I didn't see there was like no outs for me, Yeah. So joining the military was another option, and like maybe I'll get to travel and see the world, an opportunity to go to college, and so it was the best decision that I made in my life. Even though a couple things happened here and there, but it was good. Worth it.
Did you also plan to use the military as a way to get citizenship?
That was part of the reason, but not like the driving force. Okay. It was oh yeah, you could join, you could get your citizenship. Okay, great.
But it was opportunity, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't like a driving force.
Okay, cool. And did you grow up like playing like war games and watching war movies? What was that culture part of your upbringing? Like the military culture, like that macho type?
I mean, I remember seeing like the Dirty Dozen, or certain movies like with John Wayne, but it was in. So I mean, yeah, I mean that's part of it. Like watching those, and but the military is nothing like the movies.
Sure. Did you graduate high school?
I was I did graduate, but I was doing home studies when I graduated. Okay. I was kicked out of high school, and then I was forced to do home studies. And then my dad put me to work during that time.
Get in trouble in high school?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, high school was rough, man. I think I barely made it. Actually, from like if all my class from that graduated from middle school, which could have been a couple couple hundred, I think, of Hispanics. There's probably like maybe 3 or 4 of us that graduated.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would you say that kids where you're from were more likely to go to prison than to graduate from high school?
Prison or just start working, leave high school. A lot of guys, remember, were killed. Some guys ended up in using drugs. So it was just, but not too many of us graduated. Like I said, it was very. I mean, there was all these different middle schools that eventually went to Compton High, but from Enterprise, from my middle school, there was only like a handful of us that from my middle school that graduated.
What year was that?
I graduated in 1995.
Yeah. So, did you worked and then you went into the military?
So I joined at the age of 17 through the delayed entry program, and I was still working with my parents at the same company that they had worked in since they got here. And yeah, and then as soon as I turned 18, it was like off into the military.
Right. Where did you do your training?
I did my training in Fort Leonardwood, Missouri, and my AIT in Fort Sam Houston. And then,
what was it like in your basic training showing up? Like, what was the first day like?
It was to me it was kind of funny because so I've experienced a lot of like I think beforehand I experienced a lot of like just a lot of different like tough experiences. So when I had these people yelling at me, like, or like I would see kids getting frustrated and even cry, I found it kind of funny sometimes. It wasn't what I found hard was the physical demand, but I didn't find like the yelling and all that like I mean it's just I thought it was kind of.
So the psychological, you were better prepared.
I think I was very prepared for it. I mean, there was times when they would, like they'd get to you,
Yeah.
But it wasn't as tough as like I saw some kids like they'd go off on somebody, or they didn't want to do nothing no more, or they'd start crying in the middle of getting smoked, and I was like, I mean, there was times when we were laughing at the situation.
Did you have friends that you joined with?
No, and it was interesting because, like I wouldn't say I was racist against African Americans, but I didn't like them. So when I joined, like there was like kids from like I got a buddy here. He's from somewhere over here in Virginia, Clements, and so I had an idea. I only grew up in Compton. I didn't go anywhere, and really didn't mix with any other ethnicity. So most of my when I was younger, I did have hang around with white kids in Gardena, but I had an idea of like what African Americans were or white kids were, and it just when I joined the military, it was just totally different because there was we weren't there to beat each other up or harm each other. We were there just for basic training. So it was good because I experienced like a totally different experience with these kids that were from all walks of life, from the Bronx, from Dominicans, and kids, black kids that I didn't have an issue with them. Like it was just like we're just here to join the military. So it was good for me because it changed my perception of people, and I think it changed the perception of other people. And there's guys that I'm friends with to this day that I went to basic training with. So it was a good experience, but it was the physical was demanding, and then I have a horrible memory too. So even back then, so just remembering certain things I remember that was kind of tough for me, like remembering certain things that like for tests and memory's been an issue that I've had I think now I realize all my life, but it got worse in the military.
Was there a point in the boot camp or the basic training in which you felt like they were building up a man instead of like tearing you down, they started building you back up?
I mean, I felt that it did. You feel like you're definitely physically you feel it, where you're when I left basic, you feel more like wow, you feel more fit. You have more of a what's that word? confidence in yourself, and yeah. So I mean that happens, and I didn't realize now when you start looking at it, but yeah, basically they now looking at it now when I talk to other soldiers, basically that they break you down into a soldier, and basically everything they tell you to do, you do it, you know. So if somebody were to tell you they turn you into a killing machine, you know. Besides that, to learn how to kill, really. But they and also to say, you know, basically whatever the military says, you do it. You know, like if your NCL tells you to do whatever, you know, you do 20 push-ups, you do 20 push-ups. If they tell, and normally most people are, or most kids are, you know, I'm not going to do that, or I'm not going to throw myself in harm's way and stuff like that. And I think that's part of what they do in the military is they break it down to, because eventually at some point, you know, at any certain combat, you're going to have to take somebody's life. You're going to have to put yourself in harm's way. Well, you know, I put myself in harm's way by jumping out of airplanes. Who jumps out of a perfectly good airplane? Not too many people, right? But you do it because of the training and because of that commitment, and also because of that mentality that you do as you're told, you know. So you know, and when you look at it, like think about the Civil War when all these soldiers were like lined up and marching towards death, really literally, you know, or guys getting off on D-Day. So I mean, yeah, who does that? Who does that? You know, you're kind of trained, and you're, you know, but you're also kind of built for that. You know, I imagine it's insane. You know.
So you build that instinct, right, to just kill on command.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember what it was like graduating?
It was pretty. It was very important for me because now I had a uniform on. I went from wearing like size 50 pants to wearing, you know, now I've got a uniform on and I'm somebody. So yeah, it was awesome. Yeah.
Did your family attend?
My family didn't attend, but I remember coming home and, you know, people would see you differently in the airport. You know, like I mean, I just noticed that, you know, oh, thank you for your service, or people, oh, you're in the military, and just people would treat you differently. You know, if I was wearing how I normally dress, you know, they wouldn't fucking pay me no mind. Yeah. But in the uniform, people saw you differently, you know. And so that was cool, you know. And then when I get home, even guys that I grew up with, oh man, you're doing real good, you know. That they were happy that I was doing something different. Right. And I wasn't like, because I don't consider myself, one of the things that I don't consider myself as a hardcore gang member like the guys that I grew up with, because there were guys that were, I mean, this is all they knew. Generations of families have, you know, have gone through this. So, you know, I don't consider myself something like they did, but they were, you know, they're like, oh, at least you get out of the neighborhood and do something different. So it was kind of cool.
So there was a lot of pride in that.
Yeah. Joining the military.
So, what was AIT like?
AIT was there wasn't any physical demand, just a lot of more intellectual, like, you know, like you have to learn that's where you learn to do your job in the military, your MOS, and had to learn like a lot of medical coding and just a lot of different things. So
what was your occupation?
My MOS was patient administration. So it involved like medical records and inpatient admissions and all these different things.
Did you enjoy that work?
Yeah, in the beginning. Well, I mean, I didn't really know what I was gonna do. So I mean, I was just like, oh, this kind of sucks. Yeah. But yeah, once I actually did that job, I enjoyed it mostly when I got to Fort Bliss, Texas, when I did air evacuations, because you have to coordinate with the Air Force and get patients to another place. So that was pretty cool.
So more responsibility with that higher level.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then my job in Fort Bragg was more or less just medical records and putting people into the system when they come in. So that was a little stressful because sometimes their records were lost, or you get some lieutenant or some colonel, where's my shit? And you have to hear him, you know.
Can you tell me about airborne training? When did you do that?
So when I got after I finished the IT, I had orders to go to 44th Med in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and when we got there to 19th replacement, there was like the hype. Oh, you got to be airborne, and you got to, if you're in Fort Bragg, you can't be a leg and blah, and all this stuff. So from there, I had the opportunity to join the airborne. Now instead of going to Fort Med, I went to the 82nd Airborne. So they sent me to 82nd replacement. And usually when you go to the 82nd replacement, most of the guys already went through airborne school. So now you're a leg in the fucking airborne unit. So they just kind of give you hell, like, oh, get down your fucking leg and do some push-ups. And I mean that was like really the only thing. A couple guys were kind of mean to me, but yeah, and I ended up in the airborne unit for a couple months before I went to airborne school. But most of the times that we call it smoking, when they're when they have you do push-ups and all this stuff, is really to prepare you for airborne school, for the airborne school. But airborne school was pretty tough, and it was it was in Fort Benning, Georgia. It was a little hot, and I think that was probably the most demanding one out of everything that I'd kind of gone through as far as physical, because of the weather and stuff like that.
So after you get into the physical shape to be able to do it, what was it like preparing to jump out of the plane?
From my experience, it wasn't. I mean, you just have fear of the unknown, and what's going to happen, and it was very controlled. So it was like if there was a certain, there was like the wind was at a certain knots or whatever they call it. You're not going to jump, and everybody had to be quiet and all that. And when you're on the plane and you can't do this and you can't do that. But when I got to Fort Bragg, I mean, there was fucking rain. I remember my first jump, it was raining. The guys were screaming and hollering and get off my pack tray and just. So I'm like, oh shit, what am I? So I think what really because I'm scared of heights. Every time I jumped, I was scared, but I did it because, because I had to do it,
Yeah.
But it was I was scared each time I did it. Yeah, it was especially when that's something. Once you do it, you know what could go wrong, and that's what I think what scared me. Like, what could go wrong? Like,
do you know how many times you jumped?
I got about 20-something jumps. Yeah.
Scary every time.
Every time I was scared, like, oh shit. And I'm hoping I didn't get door position, because then you see everything, like all the heights and all that. Or night jumps were better because you didn't see the ground, so you didn't like when you're seeing it, you're like, oh shit, you're the expectation of like you're gonna hit the ground, and at night you just as soon as you feel it you roll, so it was interesting.
So how did you adjust from military life? You came from this very violent environment. I mean, obviously the military is also a violent environment. It's a different type of violent environment. How did you adjust to like the routine, to the schedules, to the rigor?
It was. I mean, when I was with the 82nd, they're very demanding. I mean, we could be jumping out of an airplane one day and then doing a road march the next day, or you're in a clinic one time and then tomorrow you got to do this, a live fire or whatever. But I just went with it. It's something that I really enjoyed, and you kind of while you're in, you kind of like hate certain things. Like, oh, this sucks, And then when you're out, you realize, oh man, I miss certain things.
Yeah.
But no, it was. I just really I went with it, and I think if I'm in I've noticed that if I'm when I'm in an environment where there's what's the word? A lot of discipline is demanded and things of that sort, I do better when I'm on my own. Like if I don't have that stability or structure, it's easier for me to just get into stupid stuff or just make the wrong decisions. And I've been in jails and rehabs and all these things. When I'm in that structure, I do really well, because I have this set. This is how you're gonna do. This is what you got to do, and so I do well when I'm in that environment.
So we'll talk about this more, I'm sure. But whenever you became a veteran, was that a difficult adjustment from the routine?
It is, because everything's structured for you in the military, and now you have to do things that kind of on your own. Like you have to find work on your own. You have to, there's not that steady paycheck anymore. There's, like if you had to go on sick call, you know what clinic to go to, and everything was just easier for you, in that sense. And so right now, that's a little bit of the frustration for me is transitioning into the United States is just kind of getting my life back. I think there's some frustration in that, like, I feel like I've been robbed of like 20-something years of my life, and I'm barely starting over again, so it's kind of hard.
So the deportation disrupted your life?
Yeah, but I could be dead if I hadn't gone through what I went through, so who knows.
So while you were in the military, it seems like Airborne would have been a good outlet for, sitting behind the desk, putting in information into a computer screen all day. I imagine that's what you were doing in your job, right?
So, but so what happens is we would get rotations. I was in a forward support battalion, and we'd support the infantry with different things, but mostly the medical part.
Right.
So when you're actually in the field, you're not. My job was to track where the patients were going, whether they were getting air evac or whatever. But we only did those actual field exercises every couple months or whatever. While you're in the rear, you're mostly training, doing airborne operations, or you're doing road marches, cleaning the barracks, cleaning your weapons. You might go for a detail, for a security detail. So you do everything but your job.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're busy.
You're doing everything but your job. But sometimes you'll get a rotation to go to the clinic, and that's when I would do my actual job, where I would work with medical records. And there's different areas that I could work in, but specifically when I was in Fort Bragg, I did medical records and admissions, like admitting people and putting them into the system. That's all I did.
How long did you do that? How long were you at Bragg?
I was at Bragg from 96 through 99. So I might have been at at the clinic maybe at the most, maybe 3 months, 4 months at the most out of my whole, and the rest of the time I was doing everything but my job.
What did you do on your off time?
All we did was drink. We drank. There was nothing else to do. So what we lived in the barracks. The barracks. It was Fayetteville. There's nothing to do in Fayetteville. Not much to do. So I mean, as soon as you got off work, we drank. That's all we did. Just drink.
Do you think that there's like a culture of drinking in the military?
It's more. Well, first of all, you get to drink when you're younger. I believe. Yeah, actually, yeah, you get to drink. You don't have to be 21 to. I'm almost 100% you didn't have to be 21 back then. So it was easier for you to be, to get alcohol, and then it's just. I mean, if there's nothing else but drinking going on around you, and there's nothing else to do, then all you do is drink. So.
Ever get into any trouble in that situation?
At Bragg, no, not really. I mean, we had fights, or but everything was kept in house. Even just doing shenanigans, doing stupid stuff. Running around the barracks. But nothing major. I didn't have any issues at Bragg.
Did you have any relationships?
No, not really. No. I had like girlfriends that I write to, but no. Nothing.
Where were you on 9/11?
So after that, I got sent over to in 99. So I signed up for 4 years. On my third year, my window for reenlistment opened up. I reenlisted for another 3 years, and I opted to go to El Paso, Texas, Fort Bliss, Texas.
Can we pause for a minute?
Yeah.
So you were talking about your assignment after Bragg?
Sure. So I ended up at Fort Bliss, Texas, and that's where I actually ended up at a hospital unit, William Beaumont Army Medical Center. So there was no formations in the morning. Probably like once a month, if anything. There was no training. There was no. I mean, it was just like it was actual 9 to 5. You're working at a hospital with civilians, dealing with. Over there we dealt with real patients, but over there we were taking ER, emergency hospital, so we were taking in patients that were involved in accidents and stuff like that. The other one was outpatient at the clinic, so it was just basic, kind of routine stuff. But over there we had patients that might be going in for cancer treatment, or might, guys that were mostly veterans and their family members, and so we dealt with a lot of different type. It was just a totally different environment. It was 9 to 5. I did various jobs there. I did medical records in Bliss, but then over there when I got sent to Beaumont, I would do rotations with Beaumont as well. I would do air evacuations, which involved whenever we had patients that couldn't get certain treatment, we would coordinate with the Air Force and we'd send them to either civilian hospitals or military bases that had the treatment available for them, or whatever operations needed to get done. Then we did also births and deaths, and then I did also ER admissions as well, and just a lot of reports. So what else we did? Third-party insurance. So I was working like if I was a civilian. So it was just a different environment.
Yeah.
And you still had the military, you still had military in there. We'd have to do certain things with the company, but it was just a totally different environment. Not what I was accustomed to. And that's where I got lax and started having problems with alcohol and drugs, and during that time I had a relationship with my ex-wife, which I'm barely getting a divorce from, and just a lot of problems with her, and just just started, and then the alcohol was like real bad at that time, so
some drug use
I started having problems. Started using cocaine, and then at some point I decided that I'm like, man, you know what? One of these days they're gonna pop me, and because they would do random urinalysis, like they're gonna get me, and I'm like, you know what? I just better ask for help. So I asked for help, and usually when you ask for help, because it's a self-referral, they can't punish you because you're asking for help.
Okay.
So I started doing outpatient treatment for a couple of months. My counselor said you really need to go to inpatient, and that'll really help you. And for a couple of months, I kind of put them off, like I don't want to go outpatient, inpatient. I mean, and finally I decided to go inpatient, but it was really good. I ended up going to Point Loma Rehab Center, where they basically had all kind of branches there. But when I came back out, I wasn't ready to quit, and I couldn't quit drinking. So I caught a DUI, and what happens is, the military spent so much money on you, like, for this inpatient program and for, to treat you, and basically they said, well, we're going to put you out of the military because you couldn't, you didn't follow the, restrictions or the rules that we had for you. So I ended up getting chaptered out in October of 2001. And 9/11 actually happened. So I remember 9/11 happened. I was in, I had the night shift. I'm pretty sure I had the night shift for the ER admissions. And I'm just looking at this thing like, I thought it was a fucking movie. I'm like, shit, because we're seeing it. And man, it was just like, once everybody realized it was true, like, oh shit, like this is for real. Like, but yeah, I remember 9/11 happening, and we were put on alert, and going through all that kind of stuff. Make sure that there was a lot of security in the hospital and the base. But yeah, that's what happened with me, and I ended up getting out on October of 2001.
Was there any guilt with that? You were kicked out of the military a month after 9/11. I imagine you had friends and colleagues.
I mean, it was just, when you're in the military, sometimes you want to get out. And I was like, man, this is. It had been almost 6 years of my life, so when somebody, for me to, when I got kicked out, I was like, fuck. It was like, it was just like failed, and it was just, I don't remember clearly like a lot of the thoughts, but that was part of it, like it was angry with myself, and then just like it was kind of tough. Yeah.
And it was just the one DUI charge?
Yeah.
Were you eligible for VA benefits with that?
Yeah. So I've always been a good soldier. I was never like, I mean, I think I only had like one incident where I had what happened, where I left CQ or something like that. But I've always been a good soldier.
Did they call it like a pre-existing condition or a personality?
I'm not sure. I'm not. When they put me out, they just put me out for just for the alcohol rehabilitation failure. So that's what they called it. And yeah. So there was a lot of like what's that, guilt, and stuff like that, and then just continued, man. I didn't stop. I kept drinking, kept using.
Did you identify as a veteran then? Like after you were?
No, I was just out of the military, and that was it. I actually, and I didn't. The real patriotism, what it means to be an American, all that came when I was deported the second time.
So you didn't identify as a veteran?
I mean, yeah, I'm a veteran, but it wasn't like,
But you didn't identify as a veteran?
Yeah.
If someone asked you if you were a veteran, would you have said yeah?
Yeah, I would have. Yeah, I'm a veteran, but it wasn't like, like I wasn't, like how I feel now, like, like I'm a veteran. I'm like, you see me, I'm wearing my shirts. I was just out of the military, and it was like, that's it, my life's over, and then that's when the incident happened.
And you were already having marriage problems?
Yeah, marriage problems, and just all these different issues. So.
Did you have kids?
No, I don't have kids with her. No, she has kids, but I don't have kids with her. I only have one daughter. And basically what happened was the drinking and all that continued. I got out of the military in October 2001. Came to visit my parents in California on December 23rd. On December 24th is when I caught my case. And without getting into many details, because and I explain, if I were to tell you I didn't do it, it's like at the end of the day, what's on paper, I pled guilty to it. So like to me, everything's in between is irrelevant. But
sure.
Basically, what happened was I was in a vehicle, and somebody we were going to pick up, score some dope. One of the guys was on crystal meth, had smoked crack or something like that, and I was on cocaine and drinking. And basically, the guy thought somebody was following him, and he just popped some rounds off into a vehicle. And then we ended up getting caught like a couple hours later. And I ended up pleading guilty to it. So on paper, it says that. I didn't do it, but again, at the end of the day,
but you were with the
yeah, and I pled guilty to it. So when people are like, what really happened? And like, if I get into the details, it's like it's irrelevant.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it was a gun charge?
It was 2 attempted murders, even though nobody was actually hit. It's like usually when a crime happens, they give you the biggest, like the biggest charge, and that's how they try to. So I feel that's how they try to get you to plead down, to get something like where you're being charged with attempted murder. Here's a gun charge. Oh, well, I'll take that. Well, that's how I feel. I don't know.
Sure.
But I take full responsibility. I was involved in. I got into a vehicle where somebody had a weapon. And I could have stopped, said, hey, what are you guys doing? Or I could have got off the vehicle, or, and actually I was the one that was driving. So I could have told those guys, hey, what are you doing? Leave that gun there, or, and.
But no one was hurt, right?
Yeah, nobody was hurt. Nothing happened to nobody. So they had me with the 2 attempted murders, and then some kind of gun charges. And then I went through the whole process of fighting my case for a couple months. I was finally going to take it to trial. And then the judge says, well, Mr. Barajas, you're looking at 15 to life if you lose trial. I'm like, oh, fuck. So that was just, I'm like, you know what? I was there. And even though it wasn't me that actually fired the weapon, if they find me guilty, there was already evidence that I was there. I'm like, I'm done. So I ended up pleading guilty, and once I did take my charge, I remember telling I made a statement to the judge that I was, I told him the truth. Like, you know what? I'm willing to tell you guys the truth, because when I got caught, I told him some other makeshift story, and I told him, you know what? I'm willing to tell you guys what happened. I'm willing to tell you that it wasn't me that fired the weapon, even though I'm already sentenced. I'm willing to, tell you guys what happened. And, they didn't care. They just wanted to send somebody to jail. So. Then off I go into state prison.
And so you weren't a citizen then?
No.
Did you try to seek citizenship while you were in the military?
I did try. So I recently found my paperwork where I started the paperwork, but I never followed through on it.
So
I had the fingerprints. Everything was ready to go except I didn't turn it in.
So then you were sentenced to state prison?
I went to state prison, yeah.
For how long?
I was in state prison. So I was in county jail for like 4 or 5 days. Then from there, they sent me to a veterans dorm.
Okay.
So I fought my case in a veterans dorm. I saw many guys get life sentences too. I was in a veterans.
Los Angeles?
Yeah. They had a veterans dorm back then. So I was at the veterans dorm for like 8 months, something like that. And then they said 2 years with halftime. So they figure out a way where your county time is added up with whatever you need. And then so I ended up doing a little bit over 2 years.
So there was a vet pod in the county jail. Was there also a veterans group in the prison?
No. Once you got to prison, if you can't, because right there you basically there was supposed to be no politics, even though there kind of was. But there I actually had a black cellmate, Melvin, he's still my friend to this day, and I mean, if anybody would have saw that, we both would have got ripped apart. So we could sit down in the same table and eat, play cards together. But yeah, once you get to prison, you can't. You're divided by racial lines, by gangs, and you can't do certain things. You walk in an African American area, you can start a riot. If you're Hispanic and you take food from half African American, your own people, So it's just a lot of politics in prison, especially California.
A lot of racial politics.
A lot of racial problems. Even there's differences between the Hispanic gangs or Hispanic. Like there's the North and the South, and then there's the Paisas, and it's crazy.
So the jail. What do you think like the veteran culture was like in that pod? Was there like a culture?
There was a little bit of that camaraderie,
Okay.
because it's. And I remember like there was a couple times when I met vets like in like the regular prison system. Oh, you're a vet, and we kind of like, but we knew that we couldn't like
cross the line.
couldn't cross the line with certain things, like we, it's just. I mean, you can't do that. It's just it is what it is.
Right. Kind of racial identity overtakes veteran.
Or gang or whatever.
Gang.
You just have to like, you could be, you have more of that. You have that connection, but you really can't. You can't do much,
It's kind of unspoken.
Yeah.
What about correctional officers? Were there veterans who were guards? Were you aware of?
Yeah. Well, at the veteran module, there was the guys were vets, and they treated us. I mean, they try to implement that. Look, you fellas, this is not a fucking this is not county jail. This is you guys at a veterans module. We expect better from you guys. There's no politics here. You guys are all in the same. They instilled that into us and reminded us who we were. So so that was cool.
That's interesting. So because you're in this veteran unit, then it kind of makes it a lot easier to avoid some of the racial.
Yeah, the problems, or the fights and all that. So it just made it easier, to just do whatever, like anything, like have a conversation, like with a black guy, like or African American, like you served in the Marine, oh shit, like nobody's gonna tell you shit, Yeah, but if somebody were to see it from the outside, oh man, you're done.
Where did you serve prison?
I was at the Linwood facility, the veterans dorm, and then ended up in Delano, which is a state prison. It was a reception, and then I ended up going to McFarland CCF. So it's not, it's more relaxed because I remember there's a big feud between the northern Mexicans and the southern Mexicans, and we actually had northern Mexicans in our module, and it wasn't like in other prisons on site. Like if you see them, you just go to town, right? Or you see each other, you attack each other. Right there, we weren't, because it was mostly guys doing 2 to 3 years and stuff like that. So it wasn't like, some people wanted to go home, so there wasn't that too much violence there. Yeah, but like I remember there was like they caught it, somebody found out there was a child molester, and they ended up, I don't know if they killed him or not, but didn't go well for him. So whoever had to do the deed probably got more time. Right. So
would you say that among lifers, like it's more violent.
It could be more violent, yeah. Maybe the prison or whoever's running it. You know, just it's weird. It's different, yeah. I wouldn't know because I've never been to the
to the life.
I mean, I've seen the prison stuff, the National Geographic or the lockdown. And you're like, oh shit.
So for someone, like if someone's watching this and they were never in a prison, what's it like to go into a prison, to be processed, to have your rights taken away in that way?
I mean, you have to literally you're told when and what to do. You're stripped of your clothes. You're sometimes made to, that especially when you're going to different prisons, when they spread your ass cheeks, bend over. I mean, you're bending your ass cheeks over in front of like all these men, or being naked in front of all these men, or having somebody to show your asshole. So it can be
violating.
Yeah, violating, and it can also be yeah, it's it could be traumatizing. It could be prison's tough. I don't, but it's not. There's no rehabilitation. What I saw, no rehabilitation. You come out worse, I think.
So, in general, do you think that there is a relationship between trauma and incarceration?
Yeah, I mean it all either heightens, like if you already have trauma, that's going to add more trauma to the incarceration because of the things that you might experience or see. Right. And then, yeah, it's totally connected, I believe.
Is there anything that you witnessed or experienced in prison that you consider very traumatic?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I won't get into details, but I did something wrong, actually twice, but one in particular where, like I said, you have to walk a thin line in everything you do, how you act, and I ended up getting the shit beat out of me, And so if I would, I'll tell you what, if I ever went back to prison again, I mean, you gotta go with the program. You can't let somebody looks wrong at you or whatever. You gotta go with it, man. You gotta fight. You gotta fight or die, man. Or you're gonna get beat up. You're gonna get punked. You're gonna, so.
So whenever you got beat up in prison, was it racial?
No, it was my own people. Yeah, the people that I ran with. Yeah, because of something that So I don't want to get into details.
Okay, yeah, sure, fair enough. Yeah. Enough said.
Yeah.
Do you think that veterans who experience trauma are more likely to go to prison?
Yeah, I think so.
Can you give me some examples of I know that you work with a lot of veterans who are deported. Can you give me some examples of how that might happen?
How somebody would lead from PTSD or the military to jail?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's so there's guys that come back that they're more prone to violence, or they're quick to react maybe or get angered a little bit quicker, so they might end up in a fist fight. They might end up beating somebody up, and then they end up in jail. There's guys that, for them, either the experience of killing somebody or taking somebody's life or watching somebody die is so traumatizing that sometimes to numb the pain or to not think about it, you might try drugs, and then it becomes an addiction. Right. Or and sometimes it's just one of the things that we notice is that because there's guys that get we had one individual that got caught with a couple kilos of cocaine, and that was his charge. But what people don't see is that he didn't just become a drug dealer and that's it. That I understand that there was a pattern or a path that led to that, from him coming back from Afghanistan, having to use, and then maybe, shit, how am I going to pay? How am I going to survive, or how am I going to make the next hit, or the next, or how am I going to get the next fix? So next, oh shit, well, let me try selling a couple of ounces, and then the next, you're selling bigger, or you might go rob somebody. So there's a lot of things that kind of could lead up to the veteran getting maybe a bigger charge. So it's you just weren't born a criminal. I mean, there's things that led to it, So that's how I see it. That's how I see the connection.
Are there veterans who face deportation, in your opinion, because they're being punished for that trauma, you think? So are veterans often given other than honorable discharges?
One of the things that we saw within our veteran community is that, so like say marijuana, when guys were doing 2 or 3 tours in Iraq, and sometimes for them it's like, shit, you know, I need to fucking drink or smoke some weed just to fucking, I'm going through another fucking tour, you know, or they get off of work or they catch a DUI, because there was guys that literally did 2 or 3 tours in Iraq and they catch a fucking DUI and then they get kicked out of the military. Well, fuck. Well, I mean, what do you think caused that?
Right.
Clearly, it was a result of the military that he's drinking and he's got a DUI now. So they are overturning some of the dishonorable discharges nowadays, or letting certain veterans get treatment. Some are getting their benefits now, especially if there's like a clear. I mean, if they were like they had you know, they were involved in certain battles, or they had what do you call it, like involved in an IED or whatever, you know, and they're missing a leg, or, you know, I mean, fuck, I mean, come on. But the military kind of sees it differently. You know, like, oh, they want to make an example out of you.
Right.
Well, we can't have people smoking marijuana in the military, or we can't have people doing this or drinking. And so they got to, you know, make an example out of you. You know.
Since you brought up marijuana, there's a lot of veterans, you know, organizing to try to get the VA to allow at least research using cannabis and PTSD. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, I've never been a big weed guy, but I started smoking weed recently, or marijuana, especially in California since it's legal.
Right.
And so there's a lot of trauma that happened to me while I was in, but also the jump injuries, and literally, like for me, like today I got up at 11, and sometimes it's literally and unless I guess some people wouldn't understand it, but literally for me it's so hard to get up in the morning, like especially when I'm in pain. And according to when I went for my exam to see if I was service connected or not, pain's irrelevant. Well, fuck, pain's relevant to me every morning, because that's
it's part of your life.
Well, it's something I got to deal with every day. It's my back and this and that, and it's hard for me to just do certain things, you know.
Yeah.
Like sometimes even stay awake. And when I went for my daughter's birthday, and I just stay awake because I've been so tired, or I haven't been able to sleep, or different things, and so it affects my whole life, everything. And but yeah, so anyways, I started smoking marijuana, and literally, I would rather take something like that literally, like where I don't have to be and take Oxycontin or the other stuff that might make me more addicted. Because I'm a recovering addict, and for me it's easy to get addicted to something else, and I don't want to be addicted to, you know, some kind of drug or whatnot.
So you have body injuries?
Yeah, back, ankles, everything. I mean,
service connected?
Well, some is service connected, like my back and my ankles, and then they're saying everything else.
From the Airborne school?
Yeah. From jumping. Yeah, I had a jump injury, so I'm trying to get more for, you know. But yeah, basically they're saying it's irrelevant. I'm like, fuck.
Did the doctors prescribe you Oxycontin?
No. Right now they're giving me just the basic stuff.
I mean, have they?
No, never gotten that far.
But you're already aware of those.
Yeah, I'm aware of how certain medications can.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like right now I'm taking Tramadol, which is supposed to be addictive, but I haven't. Like, I could stop using it, and hasn't. But it's addictive, and it's not legal in the United States, so I take it in Mexico. But literally, I could just if I'm taking those pills like every day, I'm like, I feel so good where I can manage to get up in the morning and do things, and I don't have that pain level, but that's where the addiction comes from me, where I could start taking it every day, but I try not to take them like as much as, you know. And the doctor told me, like, you need to figure out you need to fix the problem that's causing the pain, otherwise you're numbing all the pain that and it's going to get worse.
Sure.
So, but I'm barely in that process because I've only been home for like a year and a half, so I'm barely trying to get the treatment. And lately I've been traveling so much doing so many different things that I haven't even taken care of myself, and that's literally like this is the last trip that I'll be doing for, unless it's very important. I won't. I'm done traveling. I haven't even gotten my driver's license, you know, and I'm not taking care of myself, and it's yeah, I gotta work on myself.
So sorry to jump around here. So were there systems in place for you to not go back to prison after you got out? Like, what kind of services were available to you?
I haven't experienced anything because I went straight from military to prison to deportation. So
you were deported from prison?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that. How did that happen?
So when I finished doing my time in McFarland, they said there was a counselor that came and told me, oh, you know, looks like you got immigration hold, and I told them, well, I'm a veteran. Oh shit, well, you should be okay. They're not. I mean, you know, they're not gonna deport you. But when my time came up, I think 2 days after I was supposed to parole, and like, man, I'm still in here. You know, I was supposed to parole already and get out, and then immigration came pick me up, and then they put us in some detention center, and from there, U.S. Marshals picked us up, like Con Air, straight up, like getting shackled up and everything. And from there, they flew us took us from Bakersfield, INS, to San Diego, picked up people, dropped off people, and then from there, they flew us to Eloy, Arizona, a detention center, and that's where I started. They started the process of deporting me, and in immigration, they don't assign you an immigration attorney, so you have to either find an attorney or represent yourself. And I decided to represent myself because I didn't want my parents spending money. I had already made them spend money on the county thing, and I didn't, you know, I wasn't even truthful about exactly what happened until like the end. I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna have them spend any more money, and come on, it's just, you know, let's see what happens. And I was there for a couple months to learn that basically once you had what's considered an aggravated felony, there's nothing that could be done. There was guys in there. Was a Vietnam vet in there. He was in there for almost 5 years. I was fighting his case. You know, like this guy's in there for almost 8 years. I'm like, once you get that felony, that's it. You're done. So I was in there for almost a year, and when my time came to appeal, the judge said, "Thank you for your service," somewhat, some type of words like that. And he said, "Thank you for your service, but I was arguing that I was a U.S. national back then, which I had no idea what it was, but now I do. When I was going through all my court proceedings, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I'm not an attorney. I got a high school education, so I was just going through the motions. When they gave me the brief the argument that I was using, all I did was put my name on the brief and add a couple of things that were different, and like the appendix where I would put my DD-214, and it was just different from the other person's information. So I didn't even know what I was arguing. So it was just, I mean, yeah, it was just, it was insane. It was kind of tough.
So where did you go after they deported you?
So I got deported in Nogales in 2004, and and I decided that I went down to my grandparents with my grandfather, and he took me in. Did the farming thing, you know.
So you had family.
Yeah.
Back home.
Did the farming thing with my grandfather, and you know, I'm like, it's not me. You know, this is not where I want to be, and then I want to be back with my family. So I just decided, man, this is not my home, and I snuck back in like 6 months later. I can't remember the exact date. And back then it was real easy. They didn't even ask you whether you're an American citizen or not. They would just wave you through sometimes. Now they check everything. You know,
so you just went through the checkpoints? Through
the checkpoint, yeah.
Okay.
And but I was super scared. I'm like, man, if they fucking catch me, I'm doing some feds.
Yeah.
Some time in the feds. And I have guys that have done up to 10 years in the feds for reentry. And so I ended up getting coming back to the U.S. and then I just started a new family. This is when my daughter came in, and didn't get married, but I was living with Karina, the daughter, the mother of my daughter, and just started a new family and started working and under the radar kind of thing. And but I don't know how many times I got my car taken away and got put over because I didn't have a license. And every time they took my car away, that was like $1,000 just to get it back out. There was one time I think I just left it. I'm like, man, it's not even worth getting that car out.
You're just working under the table?
Well, no, I was working for the union actually. Okay. Sometimes I would work under the table, but then I started working for the union. I was making $31.65 an hour. And for people that say that, that immigrants don't pay taxes, not only did I pay taxes, but I didn't get anything in return because it was a fake Social Security. So, okay. But I worked for the union and became a journeyman. I worked for journeyman and then it got real slow in 2008. Started doing like any kind of work, like agencies, staffing agencies, and that's probably the hardest work I ever done, like unloading the big semis of equipment, like or vacuums and refrigerators. Man, fuck, that's crazy. And the worst part is the people that unload, like the Hispanics, mostly Mexicans. They don't I don't know if it's because they're pressured, but they have this. They move at a pace that's like, man, you guys are fucking crazy, man. That was one of the hardest jobs that I've ever done is unloading. I mean, it was a lot of physical labor. So,
how did you get involved in your advocacy work for other veterans?
I didn't use the internet too much until like late 2007, 8, 9. That's when I started connecting. There was hardly any articles beforehand on deported veterans. So there was like 1 or 2 articles, and I saw a couple of comments from guys that were deported, and then I contacted a couple of people that were kind of helping a couple of guys, and that's how I got involved. So before I actually got deported, I started organizing some of the families of veterans that had been deported, and I started finding out that there was more guys, and I would go to like parades and hand out flyers and speak at different places. I wouldn't tell anybody I was deported, but I'd share information, about other guys that were. And then I was driving from visiting somebody in 2009. And wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. Rear-ended this lady and got pulled over. And here's my insurance. She's like, "Oh, I want a police report." Fucking sheriff came around the corner, and the sheriff, I showed him my driver's license, the Mexican driver's license. No, this is no good here. And then I showed him the insurance, which was good, but he decided to do background check or whatever they call it. He ran my name through the system and found out that there was a warrant for an arrest for somebody in the same house that I was living at. And basically, I didn't pay a ticket for when I was working up in Palmdale with the roofing company. So they ended up taking me in for the ticket. And I basically told the guy, "Hey, you know what? I'm deported," and I told him the whole deal. So he actually, I don't know if it was he was allowed to, but he actually allowed me to make a phone call my ex, and then she had the baby with her. So that was the last time I saw my daughter, and then she was able to keep the vehicle, so they could have impounded the vehicle too. So he was pretty nice, and I think he was a vet too, and. That was like the second time I ended up going to another detention center. This time it was run by the sheriff's department. The first one was by private security, and this was run by the sheriff. So they ran it like you're a fucking criminal. You're just a detainee, and they ran it totally different. And did a couple months there, and then there was a guy, forget what they're called, whoever was in charge of my case, that said, "Well, Mr. Barajas, it looks like, we could give you the DA or whatever wants to give you some time because of the reentry. You're looking at federal time. But my boss here, because of your military service and you haven't broken the law since, they just want to reinstate your deportation. They're like, we're going to see what we're going to do with you, and then one day just knocked on my bunk and, hey, you're going to Tijuana. So they deported me in 2010. And then that's when I decided, you know what, fuck, I'm done. I don't want to go back. I don't want to hide. I don't want to worry about getting pulled over and starting and going back to jail. I hate going to jail. I hate jails. And because I was kind of involved with the deported vets, and I saw a little movement happen, I thought it was going to be a little, I thought it was going to take, it's going to, maybe something will happen now. And man, it took me 10 years to get home.
So tell me about that process. You applied for citizenship, or how did that work? How did you apply to come back home?
So what happened was there was a guy that I connected with before I got deported. Name's Luis Alvarez. He won his case while he was getting deported, and he found a case similar to mine, I think in California too, where basically someone was being deported for the same PC charge, 246, which is the discharge of the firearm into a vehicle, and the immigration judge ruled that it was not deportable. So we're using case law at that moment, and that was back in 2000. So 2000, I think 2016 is when we kind of started researching that. And during that time, I ended up connecting with the ACLU with this other attorney named Margaret Stock, and she ended up looking at it and like, oh, it looks like you might be eligible for citizenship because you can argue that it's not an aggravated felony, and technically you shouldn't even be deported. So we started the paperwork with this attorney from Colorado, Mariela, and geez, I don't even remember when, but it maybe like 4 years before I actually, 2 years before I actually applied for my citizenship. It was really difficult because we had to get a lot of paperwork and the different times that I've been in jail, get information and get stuff about when I went to prison. And the normal application is a little bit easier because you usually say no, and everything is yes. And then you have to explain why you were in jail and this and that. So yeah, it took me about 2 years just to get the process started. And then I ended up connecting with the ACLU. During that time, we had formed a coalition, in an organization also called Honorably Discharged and Discarded, which Nathan Fletcher, who's now a county supervisor of San Diego, used to be an assemblyman, he's still part of the organization. He was on it, and then all these different ACLU attorneys. During that time, the ACLU ended up doing a report on deported veterans, and then they saw that this was a big issue that they had to get behind, and they started getting pro bono attorneys from these big law firms. And I presented them this opinion letter from Margaret Stock, and I told them, hey, it looks like I'm eligible for citizenship. And they said, look, well, it looks like you are. So it turns out for somebody that serves during wartime, you don't have to be necessarily in combat, but if you serve during wartime, there's the criteria for citizenship is honorable discharge, which I had, no aggravated felony, which we were arguing, good moral character, and basically hadn't been within a year. I hadn't been involved in anything that could where they could say if there was any bad moral character. But it doesn't say whether you have to have a green card or any kind of legal status. That's all you have to have. It doesn't say you have to be. And when you apply for a residency, you do have to have a green card and all these different things. If you serve in times of peace, you have to have a green card and all this. So that was like my, because I served during that 9/11 time, that was the only thing that helped me out. Serving those couple, they put us in during like a wartime service. Like as soon as that happened, they put us under, like, anything could happen. So everybody in the military came under that jurisdiction or that law or whatever they put.
So that 1 month from 9/11 to October.
Yeah, and if I would have served a couple more months, I would have been considered a 9/11 vet, and I would have been able to get the big GI Bill. And so right now I'm screwed, and I only have the Montgomery GI Bill because I lost that. But basically, we started the process, and then Easter of 2017, Nathan and a couple of the attorneys, they figured out, you know what, why don't we try pardons for the crimes that these guys got deported for? It'd never been done before. And Governor Jerry Brown was the governor during that time, and through some of the connections that we had and some of the people, they were able to have, Jerry Brown just took an extra look at our pardon. So we submitted 5 and we got 3, and I was one of them.
So you one of 3 pardons.
Yeah. So basically, when they gave me the pardon, it just wiped my record clean. Because even all the DUIs and everything that I had before, I didn't go to court for them, and somehow Texas threw them out. So I basically I had a clean record.
Start over.
So I had a clean record. I'm like, oh shit. So that was just like, that was just like the frosting on the cake. And then finally, I was supposed to be. They were supposed to make a decision on my citizenship, and it took them longer than they should have. And I can't recall what happened first or not, but they were going to deny my citizenship on the good moral character because of the people the acquaintances that I had. So because they asked me whether, was I a gang member? I'm like, yeah, I was a gang member at one point, but I wasn't a hardcore gang member. I was doing some high school stuff and this and that, and they asked me if I still had contact with any of those guys. I'm like, yeah, it's like they say hello to me, how you doing? There's a couple guys that are deported that I grew up with that are from that neighborhood, and I talk to them, but it's more of a social thing. It's not like, let's go plan the next drive-by, And so they were trying to deny me on that, and then they got an expert, an expert something on gang stuff, and they were able to rebuttal what they were saying. And then, so finally they ended up, they say I don't know, before or after they put a lawsuit because they were supposed to make a decision within a certain time, and they didn't. So they put in a lawsuit, and then they reached out to my attorney and said, okay, we're ready to make a decision, but we can't make it until you retract the lawsuit. Retracted the lawsuit, and they gave me my citizenship. So, bam. And then they wanted to deny me one more time. So when I was going to my citizenship interview, I had done an interview the day before that with some kind of Washington. It wasn't the Washington. I did the Washington Post, but they were I did them too, but I did something like a Washington Journal or some kind of weird right wing newspaper. Their headline was criminal immigrant gets citizenship. So they quoted me as having to have crossed the country illegally more than I had told USCIS. So basically, right there, right before I crossed, they had to call my attorneys, and then they had to all right, you need to do a sworn statement again, and you told us that you crossed the country illegally once, and here in this newspaper they're saying that you crossed more. I'm like, well, this is just like a misunderstanding, and they basically yeah, it's probably a misunderstanding. But had I lied to them about that, or if there was a discrepancy, that would have been it. I wouldn't even gone to my interview. So I was like, oh man, it was just one thing after another. Wow. My life has just been insane. I mean, I've been homeless in Tijuana. I've gone through all kinds of stuff, suicidal attempts, and it's been, you're just getting the gist of it, but my life has been held back, And a lot of stuff that I feel that I put myself in circumstances, but some of it, there's things that are connected to the service, but it is what it is. So
since becoming involved in other deported veteran cases, how many veterans have you been in contact with? Do you think have been deported?
Easily, the ones that we've been in contact with, easily over 300 of those men and women, and then the other ones have either faced deportation, have been repatriated, had some immigration issue, good probably 100 that we have on our database. But I think it's thousands of men and women that have been in this situation. We just don't know how to track them. Right. And finally, we did we worked with the Government Accountability administration or agency or something like that, something with the government, the federal government. And they actually found that some of these veterans shouldn't have even been deported, that ICE has to. They basically, ICE didn't do what they were supposed to, and they made some suggestions to Homeland Security about what they need to do. Also, that they start tracking the deported veterans. So there's a lot of things that, through our work, that that we're starting to see happen. We've had a couple of congressional visits, and it's on the map now. And there's hope that that things will change. And we're seeing, I think, this year and next year, we'll see a couple of guys go home.
But I think that since Trump's presidency, immigration issues obviously politicized, and there's like a spectacle behind the media behind it, with the ICE raids and everything like that. But these problems existed before that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, the law as far as deporting veterans started in 1996, and it wasn't meant for deporting veterans. It was meant. What happened in 1996? They took away the discretion of judges, and before 96, the judge would have discretion. They would look at your military service, or they'd look at your life. It wasn't specifically a veteran. They would see, okay, well, this is your first time. You've been an exemplary resident for the last 20 years, and yeah, you may have gotten in trouble 20 years ago or last year, but we're going to give you another chance. But in 96, the law is the law. This is the law. If you commit an aggravated felony, if you're not a U.S. citizen, you will face deportation. So that's what happened. So this has been going on since 1996.
Do you think that the current administration is taking that law and using it to enforce its own power?
I mean, I feel that there's always been a mechanism to deport people. It was what's the word I'm looking for? It was just perfected maybe during the Obama administration, and now it's like you have this mechanism to deport people or go after people that are here illegally or that get in trouble or different reasons. And now because this administration is very anti-immigration, they're just they're going after people, and it just.
Can you talk about how immigrants have contributed, not just to the military, but to the country in general? Do you think that a lot of people who support this administration, what do you think they need to understand?
Well, I mean, they need to realize that immigrants have, they're the ones that are picking our crops, doing jobs that, that are underpaid. So I think we need to recognize that they're needed, in this country, and also immigrants have served our armed forces since the beginning of this country. If you look at the Civil War, they were literally taking the Irish off the boats. There's the draft riots in New York. I think it's one of the biggest riots, and that was because of the draft. And actually, the Irish were fighting on both sides, and they were key in winning certain battles, like the Irish Brigade and all these different things. So, and I was looking at some of the stats that somebody was giving me, and literally during World War I or World War II, like thousands. I'm talking about a couple 100,000 of immigrants that did not have legal status in this country went to World War I, World War II, and Vietnam and Korea. So and now to volunteer, obviously, there's thousands that are serving as well. So immigrants have always been part of our country.
Do you know any Vietnam veterans who were not citizens who were drafted?
As soon as the draft started, yeah, any draft, what happens is, by law, most people don't know this, but supposedly we have 11 undocumented in this country. Let's say 5 of those are within the range of serving. If there is a war tomorrow with Russia, China, whoever, by law, all these people can be drafted and sent to war. And that's what's happened in every major war that we've drafted immigrants in World War I, World War II. Again, the Civil War, Abraham drafted, and he started the draft. Have served in all our major wars. So I know guys that say they didn't even know English. They were sent off to Vietnam. Now they could have left to Canada like some people did, or just gone back to Mexico. But they decided, this is my country, or I feel like like I have to do this, you know. So I think that's commendable. That should be commended. You know,
Sure.
you shouldn't be kicked out of this country because you come back and you make mistakes. If you break the law, hell yeah, you should go to jail. But you shouldn't deport that person. And I think even the criminal system's jacked up, you know, personally.
From what I know, especially the Hispanic veterans I've interviewed and known in my own life, there's a very conservative type of culture and tradition